Good evening. It is the night of talk number 2 regarding bullying and suicide prevention. Tonight, I will have our guest, Kirk Smalley, on to address this topic. He is the co founder of Stand for the Silent, so I'm going to have him connect in with us right now. Go.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi there, Kirk. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Just hanging in there, trying to make it to the end of the week. So I wanted to just connect. Sorry, I'm having camera issues. There we go. So I thank you for joining us again tonight on my platform. This is the second part of our two-part discussion on anti-bullying and suicide prevention and awareness. And tonight's topic, as you and I set forth, was warning signs. And so I thought we would share things that you point out during your talks across the country about the warning signs, about what parents, even other kids and fellow classmates can look for in their fellow students. And then I thought maybe towards the end we could address a little bit of the bullying and kind of where we think some of that might start and how to start to curb that.
Sure. Sounds like a plan.
Great. Well, why don't you start us off with how you would normally start talking about the warning signs in your presentations?
Okay. First and foremost, I want to let everybody know that, not everyone is going to exhibit all of these warning signs, or maybe not even any of these warning signs. Um, you know, our son Ty, he really didn't exhibit any of them. He was always smiling, always happy, always seemed like he was on top of the world, and so not everyone is going to be typical of any of these, but some of these items that I'm going to talk about are what I have learned that other children have exhibited signs that their parents have seen uh, that they maybe didn't recognize at the time as a warning sign that their child was thinking about taking their own life. One of the first things that can often be a sign is they'll start giving away some of their favorite things. You'll notice that some of their personal items are missing, and a lot of times it's their favorite items. Um, at that point, it's time to talk. What's going on? Let me know. I'm here. I'm listening. Um, so that can be a big check mark. Something that we want to really address is when we see something like that happening. Another really obvious sign is physical complaints. I don't feel good. My tummy hurts. I'm sick. And what they're doing is they're hoping to stay home from school. You know, um, they don't want to go. They don't want to face their bully, the aggressor, and if they start doing that repeatedly and more often, then again, it's really time that we need to have a heart to heart with them. You know, a third sign that I would recommend looking for and keeping our eyes out for is changes in their eating or sleeping habits. I'm not hungry, doesn't want to eat, um, not sleeping their normal hours. Uh, those are another indication that something's going on. You know, um, I Leslie, I don't want to say that if you just see one of these things, that it's time to go and get your child counseling. You know, uh, when you start seeing a pattern of a lot of these that I'm talking about, then now it's time to get scared, time to, but any one of them should trigger a conversation with your baby.
That's what I was just going to ask you, is if you saw one of those things, and maybe not day one of the tummy ache, but like you said, a pattern. And if you see, these things, or example, like you said, giving away the belongings, if you notice a thing or two missing, then you might have that conversation. And like you said, not rushing them off to therapy or immediately calling the school, but at least it would give you the reason to open that conversation with your child.
Right. Another sign would be a drop in academic performance. If you have a straight A kid and all of a sudden they're starting to make C's and D's, hey, you got to find out what's going on there. A fifth sign would be unhappiness regarding social or school environment or trouble over behavior. You got a kid that's always been ready to go to school, likes school, and then all of a sudden, I don't want to go. There's something going on. It's time to start looking into that. And then a sixth sign that I would recommend watching for would be if they get really defensive over their behavior or their attitude, random irritability, mood swings, basically. Again, if your child has always been happy, smiling, go lucky, and then all of a sudden, they're mad at the world, sad, depressed, there's been a big change there. So, those are basic signs that we can watch for. And like I say, any one of them on their own is not something that, you need to panic over. But we do need to discuss it, and we do need to have that conversation with our child and let them know that you're noticing a change in something about them, and you're noticing that, they're different, and you realize that there is something causing that and something going on. And kind of as a segue into that, you also need to let your child know in that conversation that you're there for them, and you're there to help them, you love them, and that they can talk to you about anything, anytime, when they're ready. And that's really important. We can't always force a child to tell us what's going on, but we can let them know that we're here to listen to them when they're ready, and that we're going to go to bat for them. So those are the basic things that I've learned over the years that I've been doing this by talking to other parents. I'm sure there are many others. Hopefully you will never have to face something like this. But like we talked about last week, 1 out of 4 of our kids in America right now will actually have a plan on how they would take their own life before they graduate from high school. And if we can learn to recognize these signs ahead of time, then we can knock that number down and we can save our babies. So if you kind of, on your lead in, you kind of mentioned that, you wanted to also kind of touch base on bullying and that kind of thing. There are several items that not all parents know when their child is being bullied or when their child is a bully. Everybody wants to think, oh, little Johnny, he's an angel, and hopefully that's true. But not all angels are not all kids are angels, and some of them behave completely different when they're not around mom and dad. And the effects that has on a victim of bullying can be pretty profound. They will start exhibiting low self-esteem. They'll think, well, I'm not good enough. I'm ugly. I'm fat. I'm slow. Um, and when your child starts talking to about themselves in that aspect, then it's really, really time that we delve into that and find out why they feel that way, because someone is making them feel that way.
And
You
to
know,
speak to what you said about the fact that the way that they're treated is a lasting effect and there are long-term consequences. I do a lot of interviews on this platform with people from all over, and there is a lot of times where they start by saying, I grew up being bullied. I was bullied for a long time as a child. And these are adults,
yeah,
some of them over 30, over 40 years old, talking about these experiences this many years later.
sure. And it has a very long lasting effect on people. It changes who we were meant to be. It changes our entire lives by being treated like that. Pardon me. Some of the other effects that it would have on the victim, would be, again, poor school performance. When you're worried about how you're going to get from first hour class to second hour class without running into your bully in the hallway, you're not thinking about your math homework or your history or your science. You're thinking about how you're going to survive the day. And so your grades are going to drop. Uh, then a third effect that can be had on the victims would be social isolation. Avoidance of being around anybody. Um, Absenteeism. They start missing more school. Running away. Because nobody's listening, nobody cares, nobody knows how I feel, and so they feel like, I'll run away. Some of the older kids exhibit signs of drug abuse, self-injury, and it's not just older kids that self-injure. I know a lot of middle school kids and even some elementary kids that have taken to cutting themselves. They feel that that's the only way that they can get rid of the pain that they're holding inside because of the way somebody treated them. I've seen these babies with scars from elbow to wrist, where they cut themselves, and they're not cutting deep. They're not trying to actually take their own life. They're trying to release their pain, and that's the only way they know how. You get active and passive behaviors. You get suicidal ideations, paranoia. Those are all effects that victims can exhibit and have because of bullying. You know, um, and
Just
then
to
you
interrupt real quick, as we had a couple questions come in about that people just joined and they wanted a recap of what we were talking about. So just to provide a brief recap, we're covering um, warning signs of potential suicide ideation and prevention of bullying and lasting effects of bullying. And Kirk, what you just talked about, I was actually going to ask you what you saw in terms of decreased activity from the kids that are being bullied as well. Um, Whether it's a sport or an extracurricular activity, I'm going to assume that if they're, like you said, avoiding their bully in the hallway, if it's part of their extracurricular group as well, there may be a desire to quit said activity, correct?
right, yeah. I mean, if your child's always loved band or basketball or football or baseball or whatever extracurricular activity, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they just say, you know what, I don't want to go anymore. I don't want to be a part of that anymore. Then more than likely, someone is making them feel that they don't belong in that group anymore, and that they're being bullied. Um, you know, there are ways to help, and there are ways not to help. You know, First of all, I'd like to cover how not to help, because so many times we make the wrong move and it makes things worse. You know, it's worse than not doing it, or than doing nothing if you do the
Before you
wrong.
get into the list of ways not to help, this might be a good lead in. Someone that was watching made a comment about I think she was mentioning the documentary, but was having a problem. Her daughter was being bullied at school. And I guess when she approached the principal, the answer was something to the effect of, sorry, it's way up in the comments, but something was to the effect of, sometimes we need to learn to ignore people's negative comments. And I think that's a really great lead in to what you're about to cover.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and we'll address that here in this section. You know,
Mm-hmm.
one of the first things that I these are tips on how not to help. Let me remind you of that, okay? Don't tell students that they need to solve their problems by themselves. You know, they're kids. They came to you for help. Don't tell them that you're not going to help, that you want them to solve the problem. Because obviously, if they could solve the problem, they would. And they wouldn't have come to you. Second thing, don't say it wouldn't happen if you acted differently. You have a right to be who you are.
Right.
If you
Oh,
act a certain way, that does not give someone else the right to mistreat you, because you don't mistreat others for being who they are. The third thing I'd like to make sure people don't help with is don't ignore their feelings or their symptoms. You know, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of courage for a child to come and tell someone one time. And if you do ignore their feelings when they have come to you that one time, they probably aren't going to come to you a second time for help. And a lot of times that can be a trigger for suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation. Um, that can be when a child feels like nobody cares. I'm all alone in this. And then they start going down that dark path. And then the last way not to help is don't ever call them a tattletale. We want children to come to us when they have problems that they can't solve. And when you say, oh, you're just being a snitch, you're just being a tattletale, then what that does is that minimizes their problems in their mind. You are minimizing them. And every child matters to me. And
me too.
none of them will be minimized. Now, ways that we can help. If you see something, let them say something. Let them come to you. You know, allow the child to talk about their day in an open-ended manner. Um, that's building a conversational relationship. They begin to know that they can come to you with anything. Um, you know, and that's what we want. We want them to come to us with the good things, but we also want them to feel comfortable coming and talking to us about the bad things too. And that's important. And that goes back to what we talked about again last week about learning how to communicate with our children again. You know, we got to help our children practice defensive statements. You know, things that they can say when they're being told uh, whatever the bully's telling them. You're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid, whatever. You know, there are ways that we can help them pre-plan what they can say in those instances so that it's not something that catches them off guard. Um, you can work with them on improving assertiveness and resilience. That's really, really important, uh, because most of the time, if you stand up to your bully and be assertive and show them that, hey, you're not hurting me in any way, shape, or form, and being resilient like that, then the bullying's going to go look for another victim, somebody that they can, uh, assert their behavior on. And then, most importantly, we got to continue to check in on them, periodically ask them, hey, has the problem stopped, you know, and offer advice. These are kids we're talking about, even high school kids, 17, 18 years old, are still developing in their mental capacity, and their brain is still developing well on into their 20s and 30s. You know, I mean, they're not fully developed, and they need our help.
Well,
You
and
know,
at that 17, 18-year-old time frame is where they're getting ready to apply for college in a lot of instances and go off to school.
sure.
And you want them to go off with confidence in themselves and their abilities.
Yes.
Um, how do you feel about checking in without a warning sign? And what I mean by that is starting this conversation about bullying and the fact that it takes place, even if it's not happening to your child. In what I go ahead, I was gonna say what I mean by that is if you start the conversation asking about what they see at school and how they can be a support system to other kids.
Sure. You know, I'll cover. You basically asked me two or three different questions right there, and I'll
Sorry.
I'll try to cover all of them in this next little section. Let's call this talking tips. How to open that conversation, what to say, when to say it, type deal. So what we do is first of all, we need to let our kids know that you can come and you can talk to me anytime you want about anything you want. And you don't always have to do it when I want you to come and talk to me, when I come to you and start the conversation. You can come to me when you're ready. Those three words are really important because I'm going to repeat them. This is how important they are. When you're ready. Again, we can't always force that child into being ready to open up to us. But the more we converse with our kids and get them comfortable talking to mom and dad again and saying, let's talk about something good that happened to you today. Let's talk about one bad thing that happened to you today. The more often we do that and the more we do that, then the more comfortable our babies are going to feel coming to us when they have a problem and need our help instead of trying to hide it from us. The next thing would be find relatable experiences. Far too often our kids think that mom and dad never went through this. They never faced this. Well, if your kid's being bullied, if you ever felt the way that a bully makes you feel, let them know, hey, I know exactly how you feel. When I was in middle school, I had a big guy that was twice my size, and he used to terrify me because he'd always come up and do such and such or so and was picking on me. And I know how it feels. And I don't want you to have to go through that. And if you do go through that, you're not going to go through it alone. Mom's here, dad's here. We'll walk this path together and we will get through it. And so that's really, really important. You know, and you got to learn to spark that conversation. I've been through this also. I know where you're coming from. I feel it. And it hurts me to know that you're having to feel that too. And it probably hurts me just as much or more because I love you and you're my baby, and I will do anything I can to protect you. The goal there is to chat with them, to have a conversation. And then while we're doing that, we need to be paying attention to their behavior. That's really important. You know, are they acting comfortable with this conversation? Are they trying to hide something still? Those are things we need to be looking at. Another little talking point would be ask them questions, but don't ask them, things that make them feel like there's a right or wrong answer. Ask them things like, what do you think we should do about this? You know, work towards finding a solution at their pace. Don't try to force a solution. Not every solution is going to work, first of all. Work at their pace and go from there. When they're starting to get defensive, when they're starting to get irritated, hey, let's back off for a little while. We'll talk about this again tomorrow or something, okay? And in the meantime, if you have anything else you want to talk about, or you come up with something that you need to discuss, come holler at me. You know. So basically, those are talking tips for having that conversation with their child. A lot of times I get parents or even kids that come to me and they say, Kirk, what if my child is a bully? Or what if my best friend is a bully? What do I do? Some of the bullet points there would be, first and foremost, talk with them. Allow him or her to give us their account of the incident or what happened, and truly listen to what they say about that. And then we want to offer reasoning and maybe a healthy alternative to that type of behavior, and we need to do that, Leslie, in a calm manner. We don't need to be screaming at our kids saying, oh, you're a dang bully. uh, you know we, we, we got to remain calm through this, because first and foremost, when we start having these conversations and we start getting a little hot under the collar because I'm not going to raise a child that's a bully, then immediately what happens is they throw up a fence, a wall, you know, and they go on the defensive, and then they don't hear a single word you're going to say after that because they're in that defense, fight or flight mode. Okay. um, a second point there, if you have a child or a friend that's a bully, would be we gotta hold them fully accountable for their actions. I mean, as harsh as that sounds, they they made a mistake, and they therefore need to be accountable for that mistake. We gotta real firmly disclose that what bullying or that bullying will not be tolerated in any shape or form. And then we need to develop rules, clear rules, expectations. We got to be fair, but we have to have consistent consequences too. you know then we need to start actually spending more quality time with them. We need to be real careful about monitoring their social media. We need to monitor their free time activities, their texting, because right now, due to the pandemic, cyberbullying, the via either social media or texting or whatever, has increased in the last 4 months 75%. So that is a huge thing that we need to watch. If your kid has Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or Twitter or the one that they invent tomorrow, then you should be on their friends list. If you're not on their friends list on Facebook, they better not have a Facebook account. It's plain, pure, and simple. And here's another thing. A lot of kids have fake Facebook accounts that aren't in their name. And so, as a parent, it's our responsibility to go to them and say, okay, I want to see your cell phone, and hit their Facebook button and see which accounts they have. How come you have two accounts and I'm only friends with you on one? I'd like to be friends with you on both because I want to see what you're posting. It's not that I don't trust you, it's that I love you and I want to keep you safe. You know, and then the next thing we probably need to do if our child is or one of our friends is a bully would be to work with their school. You know, bullying, a lot of that bullying is happening at school. It's not all just online. We work with the school on prevention, teaching, and then we got to follow up on that, you know, to ensure that there's been a decrease in that negative behavior. You know, those are all little items that, you know, that can help with this and solve some of these problems.
You touched on the school there at the end of what you were saying, and tell people that are watching how they get Kirk in their neighborhood. How do they get Stand for the Silent, the organization, the word, the mission into the schools that are in their community?
Well, that's really easy. All it takes to get me to come speak at a school or at a community organized event is an email to Kirk. And if you want to shoot me an email and invite me, you know, as long as you have the authority to actually schedule a presentation with me. A lot of times I get emails from parents that say, I need you to come speak to my kid's school. Well, I would love to, because I will talk to anyone that will listen to me, because by speaking to one pair of ears, that just gained me another pair of lips to help spread my message that bullying and youth suicide has got to stop. But the problem with a parent emailing me and saying, I need you to come talk to little Johnny's school, is I have to have someone at the school that will work with me to schedule a presentation. I can't just email them or call them and say, hey, I'm coming November 7th to speak to all your students. Have them in the gym at 9 o'clock and we're going to have a 90-minute presentation. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I wish it did. So what they would have to do, if you're a parent and you want me to come speak at your school, would be to go to the school and talk to the principal or a counselor, even a school teacher, you know, and say, hey, there's this guy, and he lost his son to suicide. He was 11 years old, and he's decided that he is going to change this world. And so now he travels around and he talks at schools and communities, trying to make kids realize that by mistreating others, they can cause someone to take their own life. And it doesn't cost anything. He'll go anywhere, anytime, to come and talk to our students and get them involved with helping save lives and save babies. And I'd really like for you to email him and have him come talk to our students and get them involved. So really all it takes is an invitation from someone that can schedule a presentation with me. It doesn't have to be a school. I've done presentations in churches. I've had Rotary clubs invite me to an open to the public community event. I've had Kiwanis, VFWs, police departments, sheriff's departments, anyone that can schedule a presentation with me that has a venue. I will speak anywhere. We don't have to have an auditorium. We can do it in a church, a library. I've spoken outdoors. I have spoken in prisons. You know, I did 2 presentations at uh, the only maximum security women's prison in the state of Missouri. And you know what? They actually started a chapter of Stand for the Silent in the prison. Those ladies were so moved and they wanted to get involved that they wanted to help spread our message, not just in the prison, but however they could. So
That
what
is
I'm,
so positive.
yeah, yeah. They actually did a bunch of craft work, you know, sewing, knitting, building all kinds of things, and they would sell that those items at a local flea market in the community there through whatever venue they did that through. And the funds they raised, they would buy T-shirts from our Stand for the Silent website and our wristbands that say "I am somebody," and then they would donate those T-shirts and wristbands to local school kids. You know, I mean,
That's incredible. Now that's impact. I mean, that's amazing.
yeah.
Do you find that when you do these presentations at the schools, that it leads to a chapter starting at the school in most instances?
You know, right now we have 332 chapters in the United States in 39 states. No, 333 actually. And we have chapters in 18 different countries now as well. Um, I have spoken in the last 4.5 years at 1,597 schools to about 1,592,000 kids. So 1,500, almost 1,600 schools in 4.5 years, and we've only got 333 chapters in 39 states in the U.S. right now. My answer to that would probably be no.
Yeah, it seems about 25%.
Yeah. A lot of the time, after my presentation, the kids are, Leslie, they pour out of the seats. They come down. They want to talk. They want to hug. They're crying, blowing, snot on you. They just want to connect and let you know that you touch their heart and that they want to help. And I get messages from on social media all night long from them after I've spoke, saying, I was that 1 in 4, and now I'm going to stay here because I want to help you make this stop. I was bullied, or I am a bully, and Kirk, I didn't know that my behavior could cause what happened to Ty to happen to someone. And I'm done. I'm not going to be that way no more. I'm going to try my best to stop being that way. Um, and even from the adults, the teachers and parents that come, uh, I get messages from them. Pardon me. What usually happens is the kids tell me they want to start a chapter. They want to keep spreading our message and keep raising awareness and making it go. And a lot of times they have trouble finding one adult that will have their backs in that school, that will help them start that chapter. And we do require they have at least one adult sponsor or advisor to start an active chapter. And there's a reason that we require that.
That makes sense. And you would think that it would be easy for someone in like the counseling or administrative department to back something like that. But
Sure.
Well, I can't thank you enough for all of the information that you have shared. We've covered so much tonight, and we covered so much last week. You shared incredible stories. These will remain on the Instagram here, and on Saturday I'll be moving them also to YouTube, so people without an Instagram can have access to all of this incredible information. And I know you've mentioned it last time, and we'll mention it again now. Reaching out to Kirk is always a possibility. And so when I post this and it's in the IGTV, I will add your email again. And if it's not email, direct message always works. If you don't see either one, feel free to reach out to me and we'll get you in touch with Kirk, I promise.
Yeah, and guys, you see on Instagram, our handle or whatever you call it is SFTS.org, and you think that's a big company, a big organization. When you get on Instagram and you message or you comment on the post that we put, you're talking to me. You're not talking to a big organization. You're talking to me. So you can reach out to me that way as well. In fact, all of
And I can attest to that because I messaged blindly and I got a message back from Kirk. So that is 100% the truth.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much again. And thank you for your time tonight. And always, you're always there when I reach out and always so supportive of the stories that I share. And I'm so grateful to you for allowing me to help share yours and your story of your organization and Stand for the Silence message.
Yes, ma'am. And anything at all that I can do, Leslie, to help you with your mission, to tell people's story and help them. You know, it's healing to people. What you do is healing to people.
Thank you.
It lets people feel like they matter, that they have a voice, and someone is hearing that voice. And so don't ever quit doing what you're doing, sugar. It's important.
Thank you.
You're saving people, and you're making them feel good about themselves and what they're doing.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. And I am genuinely interested in the people in our universe, and the stories that we've shared all teach me something. And like you said, it gives them a voice, gives them a platform, and everyone deserves to be heard, and everyone's story is important. So it goes in line with what Kirk and Stand for the Silent are all about. Every single person is important. There's always someone here to support you. Reach out to either one of us. We're always here to listen. Thank you, Kirk. Enjoy your evening. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll talk soon.